to Berlin, Germany, and week 6 of the LEC Spring Split. G2 Esports are villains trying to look tough for the camera while they are no longer undefeated. And tonight they go up against another tough opponent in Schalke 04, who are looking to strengthen their position in the battle for the top 2. Hello everyone, I'm EpicSkillshot supporter, and before we preview the action to come, I want to take a look back at last week when we hit the halfway point of the Spring Split and things got wild. First up, after chasing a win for 5 weeks, Rogue finally secured their first victory against Misfits nonetheless. After changes to the roster, Kikis ran, or should I say, dropped wild on Pantheon and brought it to the finish line for Rogue. Now, unfortunately for Misfits, they now sit at 6 losses, and as a result, they are bringing in head coach Hussein Mousvi. They're bringing him back today. Now, secondly, SK Gaming with Broken Shard at the helm secured their first 2-0 week. They bested Fnatic and maybe more importantly in the race to playoffs, Vitality, on the back of, once again, self-made in the jungle. With his eyes set firmly on Rookie of the Split and playoffs, this man's Lee Sin takes no prisoners. Now, finally, G2 Esports is no longer undefeated. The dream for the 18-0 split is dead, and we have Origen to thank for it. Nukeduck, he straight up styled on caps on his iconic Zed, resulting in the first death mark on G2's record and a massive victory for Origen. Now, perhaps 2019 is indeed the year of the duck? Time will tell, but upsets aplenty in week 5, and the race for playoffs is well and truly on. With that, I would like to welcome Christy Ender Frierson and our special guest for the week, Alvar Aranea Martin Alienar, Managing Director of Mad Lions in the LVP. Hello, gentlemen. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Happy to have you here, man, and happy to have you back on the show. I missed you last week.
Yeah, well, I've missed being on the show as well. You guys both look dapper. We will let the viewers decide if they prefer the sneaker look or the dress shoe look. We'll see. Anyway.
I like the sneaker look.
Yeah, but
come on, man. Come on, man.
Oh, you even got the camera on it too. That's great.
Please, please.
I wish we had like a voting system now behind us, but you guys can tell us what you think on Twitter. I do want to start by talking about the league. Things really heated up last week. G2, first defeat they've had all Spring Split. So the big question, are they still the best team in the league, yes or no?
Yes, they are still the best team in the league. If you look at the whole season long, this team has been performing so consistently well. And for Origen, the only team that's bested them, it was just that last week, and actually the last few weeks that they sort of picked themselves back up and are going for the top.
Yeah, I think it's also good to have a loss for G2 because they were winning every single game. They were winning even with like bad drafts, for saying anyhow. And probably they will lack a bit of motivation running for the playoffs. So I think having a lose here, maybe they will mentally motivate them to come stronger for playoffs.
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, we still look at them as the best team in the league, no doubt about that. And for me, it's now looking at who can possibly emerge to contest them. We know Origen can do it. They beat them just last week. But which other teams are we looking at?
I think you still have Vitality and Schalke that are trying to break and decide who's top 2 at the moment. And I'd have to give my bet over towards Vitality, who smashed Schalke last week. Attila came in, shut down the trash talk from Upset, and they looked like the much better team on the day.
I'm going to bet for Origen. Obviously, we see a different Origen these last weeks, with Mithy playing much better than the previous weeks, and also Cole playing really good. And also I'm going to give a point to SK. That is the other team who went 2-0 on last week.
Yeah, they went 2-0 last week. They had a really good performance. You, of course, are very familiar with a lot of the players on that lineup. What do you think of what they've shown so far?
I think so far we've seen a weak Worldleap, because I know Worldleap is way better than what we've seen yet. We've seen a stellar self-made. I think he's going to get the Rookie of the Year, or probably he's aiming for that. And also I've seen Piran playing really good, and Crownshot playing sometimes good, sometimes not that good.
But is it good enough for the top 2 and to beat G2 possibly?
That's probably hard to say yet, but I'm still counting on them to run on that top 2.
Well, we're definitely very excited about the SK lineup, and we talk a lot about the top 2 because super important with the new playoffs format is that the top 2 spot, if you're in those top 2, you will directly be sent to Rotterdam, and that is of course a big goal for all of these teams.
Oh yeah, it absolutely is. And the most hype thing about the #1 and #2 teams in this new format is that they actually play against each other because they get that bye, then have to play 1v1. Which team is the best? That team goes directly to the final. Loser has to go play against the best of the rest.
Yeah, and we have to remind that Team 3 and Team 2 playing against each other is that third place right now, it matters a lot because that gives you a pass to the final, to the real final.
It is so, and it is, of course, the halfway point of the split is behind us. That means that a lot of teams are looking to make changes and are looking to make sure that they are in the best possible form going into the second half of the split. The road to the playoffs is on, and Misfits is feeling it after losing yet another game. I believe it was their 4th consecutive loss last week. They are bringing in head coach Hussein Mousvi back, who, of course, stepped to another role within Misfits. They feel that is a necessary step for them. What do you guys think?
Well, I think it's a great change for them. They need a clear, strong voice to come into this team because you look at that roster top to bottom, well, they've got a lot of strong personalities, a lot of very distinct ways in how they want to play the game, and it's been scattered from them. So Moose needs to come in, give them a clear game plan, and then they need to be able to execute on it if they want to start winning some games.
I think that's a good point because Jesse is a coach who recently become that, you know. Jesse was a player before, and you have personalities like Soas, Febiben, Maxlor, Hansama. They are all real experienced players. You probably need that kind of experienced coach who has a lot of years coaching already to control them.
Yeah, I think it's very important, and the question will be if we will see this changes straight away. Of course, you've been a coach as well. It might not work straight away, but it is a project that we have to look at for Misfits. I think for other teams, they're also feeling the heat. Of course, Rogue famously brought in Vander last week and Finn and picked up their first win. So there's a lot of changes going around the board.
Yeah, and I liked what I saw from Rogue last week, but it's still a hesitant optimism from me. I think they still need to start winning some more games. And today, to build a solid foundation to try and move into the summer split, they have a great match up against Excel that they should try to win to prove that they have improved.
Well, all the teams are fighting for that main event of the split, and it's the spring finals in Rotterdam on the 13th and 14th of April. You can now get your tickets at eu.lolesports.com/Rotterdam. So go ahead and get those tickets, get a front row seat for all of the action. A team that you may not see there, or you may, I mean, we're not counting anything out, is that team that is struggling now in the LEC, the reigning champions, Fnatic. And to get some more insight on them, we are going to hear two different opinions, one from Dark Frosk and one from Light Frosk.
You know, I came from the region of ADCs, Uzi, Jackie Love, Wei Xiao. In fact, this guy lost to Wei Xiao in 2012. And I know, I'm supposed to be excited. Swedish superstar ADC Rekkles, greatest EU player of all time. But I'm not quite sold. Not sold. He was locked out of pro play due to age restrictions after challenging that Wei Xiao on the international stage at 16. 16! He was a prodigy. Since his professional debut in 2014, Rekkles has only missed Worlds once. Yeah, I'm familiar with the record. The Gamsu Spirit roster, right? Remind me, who has gone to Worlds with Rekkles? You know, legendary names like Soaz, Xpeke, Febiven, Huni, Reignover, Caps. The list goes on. He's also played with Froggen, I believe. All the quintessential greats of the European mid lane. Although even Froggen couldn't carry him. Him? Them. I meant them. Although I am seeing a pattern in Fnatic's record that isn't just all about Rekkles. You're suggesting he coincidentally makes 4 Worlds appearances because of mid laners? You're crazy. The most recent Caps era of Fnatic was entirely the Rekkles show. Their late game teamfighting was considered the best in Europe around exactly him. Am I? I mean, Caps leaves and suddenly the world's finalists plummet in the standings. Caps leaves and Swedish superstar ADC Rekkles has the chance to be the primary for Fnatic. And all they get is 8th place? It was a brand new team. There was always going to be hiccups. The meta didn't suit Fnatic. Now that they've shifted to 9.3, the crit ADCs are back, he'll be able to carry from the bottom. They what? They lost to SK? Oh yes, our Lord and Savior has returned. Crit ADCs of Rekkles to dig Fnatic out. Face it, when Rekkles has had to be the sole carry, he can't cut it. Rekkles is hardly the sole contributor there, but if you want to talk sole contributions, let's examine the facts. 6 different top laners, 5 different supports, 5 different junglers, 4 different mid laners, but 4 European titles, and he's the only constant in every iteration. Rekkles is the prodigal son of Europe. He's down now, but Fnatic have never missed playoffs, and they're not out yet. Yes, technically that's correct. Fnatic aren't out yet.
do you feel like you're in a comfortable spot right now, or does this feel just like a ton of pressure on you to try to fix all these issues as they're coming in, on top of a sports psychologist trying to help, on top of public pressure?
I have a mixed feeling about it, and the way I've been feeling the whole split is kind of weird, actually, because I've always had the feeling that we would be able to contest the best teams, but often there's just something going fundamentally wrong early in the game or even later in the game, and we never really get to that point. It has been really exhausting and draining for all of us the past weeks, I think, because we each have some individual things we need to work on, and then we have a lot of team-based things we need to work on, and everyone's putting in that much extra work, and then we just get into sort of an evil circle, I think, like an endless circle of constantly trying to fix things all the time, and then it just gets really tiring. And I think that's something that, especially now, we're going to have to be really careful about, that we don't actually burn ourselves out entirely by just grinding so hard. The next 2 weeks are going to decide if we're going to go to playoffs or not, and if we go 0-2 this upcoming weekend, the chances of making it is very, very low.
Well, it's been a rough couple of weeks for Fnatic, and tonight they face off against Origen in a matchup that can be pivotal in the race for playoffs. There is just so much to unpack here between the things that Dark and Lightfrost touched on, as well as Broxa just saying that he's already exhausted and it's taking so much out of the team. This is a very interesting matchup for tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really exciting, too, because I think that Fnatic is a team that needs to win 6 out of their next 8 games, because they only have 8 left in order to reach that magic number of 9. So you play against teams like Origen, your hopes are not going to be looking great, but you have to pull off the win.
Just a correction, it isn't a match of the week. I think I got bamboozled there, because historically when I look at a matchup like this last year or 2 years ago, you think this must be your marquee matchup, but it isn't. And it is just exactly because Fnatic is in a crisis, Aranea. It's not going well. What from the outside is your vision on the situation?
I mean, we have a Fnatic that is literally playing without any game plan or without knowing to do in the map, and that's really sad to watch from the already championship of Europe, and then you have Origen that is actually coming on a really good shape, especially last week, coming with a 2-0 and beating G2, and probably becoming one of the best teams right now in Europe, Origen. But still, I'm gonna go for the Fnatic hype. I'm really trusting on Fnatic, and they really need this win to actually fight for the playoffs.
So why do you have trust in Fnatic in this scenario out of all of them against an Origen that is playing so well?
They just beat G2.
I mean, I'm watching Rekkles right now. He's watching at me. He's looking at me, and I cannot say anything,
I'm not sure what he's looking at.
No, he's staring at
us. You have to think, like, who is he going to look, me or him with the sneakers?
I mean, he's a fashionable, stylish guy. We'll need to ask him afterwards. Can I get just one reaction from you guys on what Frosk said earlier or talked about earlier as Rekkles being the sole carry on this team once again? We'll get some chances to talk about it in PGL at the end of the day, but it is an interesting conundrum.
Yeah, I think it is, because of course he has been the constant on all of these fantastic rosters, but his biggest issue, I felt like, is that with trying to take on more of a carry burden, he started, especially earlier in the split, trying to play champions that would dominate in the lane, like the Lucian, those sorts of things. And that's never been a strength of his. He's trying to work on it now, but it's still not at the level it needs to be to get Fnatic wins.
Yeah, we'll see tonight in Fnatic versus Origen. Huge matchup if Fnatic want to keep their chances of playoffs alive. But there's a lot more explosive matchups on the card, of course. Let's take a look. Rogue got their first win. They're looking for their second versus XL. That might be a really brawly game with those two teams really chasing a win. And for the rest, every single matchup is so incredibly important in the road for playoffs.
It absolutely is, because we're reaching the point in the season now where you can't be losing any of these games, because every team is chasing for that 9th win. And right now, a lot of teams that we expect to be in playoffs just aren't there. The Misfits and the Fnatics of the world are desperate for any wins they can find.
I agree with that, especially Misfits and Fnatic. If they get a lose today, they might probably be already out of playoffs. Yeah. So they really need these wins, because everyone coming out of the season, before the season started, everyone will put Fnatic and Misfits as one of the favorites, and they're not looking like that right
Yeah,
now.
and that now means that there's 2 other teams that can take their place, and those teams are going to fight for that chance. Let's take a look at our predictions. You already said you're voting for Fnatic in the match versus Origen. Not a lot of people had that faith, I think. Nope, you were the only one on here. Even though Rogue got their first one, everyone's going for Excel. Nobody's thinking Schalke can beat G2 out of us, at least. What jumps out here to you?
What jumps out to me is actually SK versus Misfits, because you have Misfits selected over there. And honestly, I did sort of, I had the internal debate, like Moose coming back in.
Yeah.
Is it enough to change this roster? But I think Moose is going to try to get them to play around bottom lane. Their bottom lane's been hard slumping, and that won't be the winning solution for this roster.
Well, you know, I would have like a scientific explanation. The fact of the matter is when I was here in the first 2 weeks, they won almost every game. When I wasn't around, they lost like 4. So I thought, I'm back. Maybe I'm their good luck charm. Because honestly, I also want, I think, realistically, SK should have a really good chance in this one, but I'm going to see. I think Misfits can do it. We'll see if Hussein Mousvi is that magical spark they need to get back there. Now, in terms of superior analysts, Twitter and Rekkles are actually reigning supreme. So, congratulations. What does that mean? That, I don't know, like, should Rekkles be here instead of you?
No, I think Twitter should all just collectively be right here. We should just have a feed open, and they should tell us what's going on with all these teams.
Yeah. Kudos to you guys at home. You're doing very, very well. One guy, however, that's still waiting to break through his chains and to conquer the rift is the unshackled Sylas. Oh no, I did it. Sylas.
Sylas.
I know. Ender, break down for us how he could be better utilized.
LEC Sylas, lol. You've all heard it, and you're probably spamming it in chat right now. Yet our teams continue to lock him in and continue to fail. But is that the fault of the champion or of the teams that play him? Honestly, I think it's the latter. Sylas might be 0-5, but we can make the pick work. What it comes down to is knowing Sylas' strengths and weaknesses and using that to fit him into a draft and a game plan. So what's he good at? Well, Sylas can achieve lane priority thanks to the wave clear from his Q and his passive, but outside of that, his base kit is pretty underwhelming in pro play. His kit promotes constant fighting and risky trading in lane to maximize his W heal, which puts him at high risk of being ganked. This also leaves him exposed to plenty of bad matchups against fighters who can take him blow for blow early on and outscale him heavily in a side lane. And then he looks pretty sad like that. So if his base kit isn't really exciting us, then his power level in pro has to be entirely conditional on his access to steal powerful enemy ultimates. And there are a few types of ultimates that professional teams will value above all others, those being long-range spells and teleports. Now these long-range spells that provide non-committal engage, like Sejuani ult, give Sylas fight-starting tools without putting himself at risk, and long-range poke can be useful to gain control over the map. Teleports like Galio ult are also great for generating skirmishes with a numbers advantage. But apart from those, Sylas still needs to be able to access teamfight ults to make up for the pretty big weakness of his base kit in the 5v5. This weakness, however, is also his strength, because Sylas can sculpt his role within a team and adapt on the fly, provided the right 5 champions are on the opposite side of the rift. And there are plenty of picks to deny Sylas a useful ult. Take Zoe, for example. I mean, what is Sylas gonna do with that? It's completely useless. So please, do not first pick him. She will just laugh in his face. Ideally, you're going to be picking him last on red side, but that shouldn't really be possible if blue side is aware their comp is exposed to a last pick Sylas. These teams will ban Sylas in the second rotation, so a red side team that sees 2 to 3 solid ultimates to steal early on should be looking to pick Sylas up as their third pick. This stops blue side from just banning him and leaves room to protect the pick by removing 2 lane counters or picks that would deny him a useful ult. So say we get the perfect Sylas draft. How do we actually pull off a win? Well, I'll tell you. Let's get our jungler to path for topside and cover Sylas, because we know he's going to be trying to push and looking to trade as much as possible. We'll take advantage of Sylas' strong skirmishing power to take good fights in the mid game, while using weaker ults to poke at the enemy and take control over important areas on the map. But we have to be cautious when going for team fights. We have to make sure Sylas has an ult that can have a high impact in the 5v5. And if Sylas gets level 16, oh baby, let's play those team fights slowly to let him cycle 2 to 3 ults to dominate the fight and win the game. So there we go, we did it. LEC Sylas went from LOL to Poggers. And hey, maybe we'll see him in our match of the week as G2 and Schalke clash on the Rift.
hang on, we have the flash in.
Deathmatch comes out, Caps doesn't have the 6. So much damage, Caps is dead! Origen on the cusp of history as they take down the undefeated G2.
It does suck to lose. You really don't want to lose. Now that Origen succeeded, everyone wants to take us down. They don't have a chance.
When people think of Schalke, they think of Upset and Ignar being a powerhouse bot lane. Our aggressive playstyle and our willing to skirmish and brawl a lot, I think that's what puts us above the rest.
Beating G2 would mean a lot to get a feeling of redemption.
G2 Esports will not be denied another international showing, taking down Schalke.
We were so close to getting to Worlds, and then losing to G2 when we just came off the final was really crushing.
Welcome to the 2019 LEC Spring Split.
The first game we played versus them was very chaotic.
And before 24 minutes, G2 had won the game.
Once they got rolling, they just didn't really stop. What we learned from it is maybe to take Janko's R button away.
Game against Schalke is important because now when we actually did pick up a lose, and who knows if we'll pick up more loses, it's a good wake-up call to not be too cocky. Everyone can still beat us.
Chip should be up in just a moment or two. He's used it already. Oh, take a look at this. Locked inside the baby cage. First blood picked up by Schalke.
The main player in the team is currently Memento. If we eliminate a Memento, I feel like then there is no hope for Schalke.
G2's bot lane is their weakest point. If you have the right tools, you can punish it.
Winning against the Upset, a mid laner beating him in his role again, that gotta sting, you know.
As a team, I think if we don't get top 2 and we don't go to Worlds, it's gonna feel like a massive failure for all of us.
It's fine that we lost, but I don't want to lose again.
Well, set to be an explosive fight at the start of week 6. Two of Europe's best teams go head-to-head. Very interesting there. Oduamne already thinking about the future that is not just a spring split. He wants to go to Worlds. He wants to get top 2, I guess, now and then. Otherwise, it's a failure. So they have to start by beating G2 now.
Does this mean that he's already resigned, that MSI is like off the table? He's like, oh, it's all about Worlds, right? We're going to Worlds.
No, I mean, he means that if they get top 2 before the playoffs, they might get top 1 and might go to MSI. I don't know.
Everybody wants to win, Frost.
They want to win. So G2 then, of course, the team to beat. They are coming off their very first loss of the year. My question to you guys is, that Origen loss, do you think that Origen now showed other teams enough of a blueprint as to how to take this team down?
I'm going to say a soft yes, and I think it starts with the idea of 9.3. So we talked at length kind of how 9.3, it brought back the crit ADCs. You know, this is great for teams like SK, teams like Fnatic who really rely on that. But 9.3 also nerfed a lot of champions that made the flex draft for GT so potent and powerful. This is champions like the Aatrox, the Akali, the Aurelia. All the top champions that G2 have played across the board are actually all of those flex picks.
Yeah, and those are also champions that Caps can look for solo kills on and just force with and just hard smash opponents. That is now less of an option with the somewhat removal of those picks.
Yeah, and it's also the question, how will G2 evolve a week later? Will they maybe come out with a couple of different flex picks? We don't know. You guys did look at a couple of possible drafts you can make with the picks are available now to counter G2 and maybe take them down.
There's just kind of this idea of there's two different strategies when you're trying to tackle G2. You can either choose to, let's neutralize the lanes. Let's play super safe. Let's try to make sure that pre-15 minutes, no kills happen on the map. And let's take a coin flip and see if we can win the team fight. Or we try to fight fire for fire and we contest them in the lanes.
Yeah, and that's what you sort of saw in this game with Origen too. And the difference for me is when it comes down to the junglers. Because you see in both these games, they went for the Karthus. But when Misfits played, Karthus got hard slapped by Jankos in the jungle. He was not pathing defensively. He was just moving around the map. Jankos read him like a book, and he got killed a whole bunch. In the Origen game, Cold played so intelligently.
Yeah.
Because what you do in these really bad early matchups where you can just get beaten and bullied around is you need to play sort of an avoidance type of gameplay, where instead of matching sort of sides of the map with the enemy jungler, you path to the opposite side, say, we'll split it down mid lane. Jankos, you can have top side. I'm going to take bottom side. And in this match, they put so much pressure on the bottom lane, even with a weak early game jungler, that they were able to get a ton of tower plates and build a massive gold lead up against the undefeated G2.
And I think the other really important thing, if we're starting to put together this blueprint, avoid them, is to look for the counter pick. Schalke have opted to take red side. That's exactly what Origen did when they faced them, and they got the counter pick, or the strong, iconic pick of the Zed into the Cassiopeia matchup. And I think Schalke are looking for a very similar trend today.
Well, Schalke, indeed, they have a big task ahead of them. If they want to take down G2 Esports, for them, it would be massive if they win in that fight for the top 2. But as you said already, it will be all about the approach to the draft, which is so incredibly important against G2 Esports. Elaborate a bit more. With red side, what would you like to see coming out of Schalke in this game?
Well, I don't want to see them giving up a bunch of kills, because while we think that the strategy will be to try to counterpick to create a strong side of the map with the last pick on red side, it has to be said that most recently when we've seen Schalke, they've been giving up free kills across the board almost in every single lane. And even when they did get a strong matchup, the Ezreal Thresh versus the Kai'Sa Alistar, Perkz and Mickey still got the better of Upset and Ignar.
Yeah, so what I need to see from Memento is first you can try to trade sides of the map, but if he can get a good jungle matchup in the draft, then he just needs to play protection for his lanes. We know Jankos wants to go hard at every single lane, try to set his team up for kills, but G2 play a fairly aggressive style, especially in the lane, and I think a player like Memento can try to identify those points, stop Jankos from finding kills, and protect his lanes when he does.
And I just have to underline that. Stop Jankos from finding kills. I don't think that Schalke need to try to fight fire with fire here. They are such a good team fighting team. A Schalke victory should look like if everything was neutral for the first 15 minutes, then let Upset take over as that incredible team fighting ADC and try your chances in mid to late game.
I mean, I follow you, but what I've seen from G2 is that even if they don't have a lot of a lead,
minutes.
Or even if they're behind, they turn it on 20 minutes. And with the form that Schalke's been in recently, is that really something they should gamble on? I feel like there's no right answer. It is incredibly difficult for this team to take on G2.
Or here's the thing. I just don't think you can scale against G2 because it's just too hard. They are going to beat you in the laning phase, and if you try to go heavy scaling, they're going to take advantage of that fact. It hasn't worked for teams in the past. The only team that's been able to find a win is Origen, and that's through smart early pathing by their jungler.
But also by shutting down Caps. And if you're going to target G2 anyway, you have to target him. Throw bans at him, get a counter pick on him, just make sure that Caps can't be that soul carry for G2, because even when they do fall down in the Excel game, that guy can 1v9.
Well, the implication is possibly huge for Schalke if they are able to take down G2. And with that, it is time to kick off week 6 with a huge matchup, G2 versus Schalke. As we go, let's get a sneak peek of our next episode in our Game Day series featuring Ignar.
I saw the crowd. Almost every people was SKT fans. So everyone just shouting SKT, SKT. I got a little bit mad. I wanted to show how good we are. In game, I just want to play well.
We're going to a game 5. Riv Misfits were one team fight away from taking down the reigning world champion.
People shouting Misfits, even we losing, it was really grateful. Usually I don't cry in game and on stage, but I was cry only one time there. In off-season, I get many offers from EU. I chasing more good roster than money, so that's why I joined Schalke. I think our roster is really good. I really want to go world again.
Well, let's see if Ignar and Schalke can make it back to Worlds, and if they can start there by taking down G2. Hello, everybody. I'm Trevor Quickshow Henry, joined at the cast by Andrew Vedia. Stay for our match of the week. G2 versus Schalke. Schalke have picked red side, and the analyst was talking a lot about how the draft can help influence or help your chances at taking down G2 Esports.
Yeah, it certainly can. The fact that there are fewer flex picks will certainly influence how G2 look to prioritize, but also G2 just had a bad draft last week. Had the opportunity to chat with Mickey about it. He says that there are a lot of poor communication, a lot of things went wrong, and they even don't have Grabs on stage because he is sick right now. So we'll see how things